Very good evening to everyone. Am I audible and visible to you? Am I audible and visible to each and every one of you? Great. All right. So in continuation with whatever we had done in the previous class, so we had spoken about the important environmental movements / protests which have happened in India. And today we are going to take up the global movements. So we are not only good evening to everyone. So we are not only going to talk about protests, we are going to talk about the important movements and important people, environmentalists who have been in news. ठीक है. So अब सबसे पहला अगर हम बात करें, this is Rachel Carson, author of Silent Spring. अच्छा, before I go ahead, with respect to the previous class जो भी हमने पढ़ाई की थी, by the end I will ask you questions. With respect to this class, tomorrow when I take a class, then I will ask you questions, because I know that it is not a very easy task to learn all the names in one go. So I'm going to give you one day to actually memorize it and memorize it properly. So Rachel Carson, author of Silent Spring. So some say that Rachel Carson was basically the patron saint of green movement. कि environmental movements किससे शुरू हुई थी? Rachel Carson से शुरू हुई थी. क्यों हुई थी? क्योंकि इन्होंने क्या किया था? Good evening. So इन्होंने क्या किया था? She wrote this prize-winning book called The Sea Around Us, and also Silent Spring, out of which Silent Spring was a little more popular, wherein she was talking about how people are using, how companies primarily are using these chemical pesticides after the Second World War. And, then she was talking about environment as a system and how to live within that environment and how to make sure that, the air that we breathe should be a little better. So she was attacked by lobbyists, and you can understand that because you see, in any kind of a government, in order for us to become a developed government, we need to have industrialization, and industrialization has like an inversely proportional relationship with the protection of environment. And so hence she was often attacked, and so were many of these environmentalists. But however, काफी देर के बाद इन्होंने जो बोला, that was actually taken into consideration, and a lot of pesticides such as DDT were eventually banned, something that she spoke about very, very early on. The next thing is Earth Day. So Earth Day 1970, Earth Day को हम कौन से दिन celebrate करते हैं? April 22nd को celebrate करते हैं. And now whom do we owe this entire thing to, and who was this person who started this off? So you see, there was a Senator Gaylord Nelson, who basically told a lot of people. So firstly, he went and, he told his fellow Congress people. And so when I use the term Congress, I'm basically talking about the Parliament of the United States of America. So he spoke to his colleagues and he said, listen, environment is like an issue, and nobody really paid heed to him. So what he did was he took inspiration from anti-war protests of 1960s, and he chose a day, which was April 22nd, and he called a lot of people. It was like a call to action, a very, very peaceful protest. They weren't supposed to go and, start burning stuff and all. But you see, estimated 20 million people and thousands of events started happening. And he couldn't have even imagined the amount of people who actually came in and started this Earth Day. So a national team of 85 people helped small groups organize events all over the country. And this was supposed to be the largest protest to ever take place. Right. And eventually, because of this particular protest and because of the fact that people were so in for it, the Congress also had to take it into consideration, and they started making a lot of laws for environmental conservation. Something like the Environment Protection Agency was formed right after this, and National Environment Education Act, Occupational Safety and Health Act. We also have something like that, but we made our Occupational Safety Hazard Code back in 2020, and Clean Air and Water Act, Endangered Species. You see, 1970s, उसके बाद 1976 में अगर हम बात करें तो हमारे देश में भी हम लोगों ने प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ द एनवायरनमेंट एंड प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ वाइल्ड लाइफ वगैरह को काफी ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस देनी शुरू कर दी thi. So tomorrow what we will do is we will talk about certain other political protests, inclusive of things which are related to agriculture. And eventually we are waiting for November 18th, which is just going to come. And then we will talk about all the environmental organizations and Montreal Protocol and XYZ. But till then, let's stick to this. Now, the next is the Kyoto Rally of 2001. If you can see it on your screen, it says world's #1 polluter. He'll destroy our world for the sake of profit, reverse global warming. So this is what the people were saying. Now, what happened was in 2001, President George Bush, he opted to pull out of the Kyoto Protocol, because basically this particular protocol was asking all the countries to commit to reduce their greenhouse gases emission. And he was of the opinion कि फिर से वही वाली बात, अगर हम बात करें, इसको हम लोग कुजनेट कर्व बोलते हैं बेटा. दिस इज हाउ इट इज. सो अगर हम लोग बात करें, दिस ऑन द एक्स एक्सिस वी हैव आवर डेवलपमेंट, and on the y-axis we are talking about our environmental degradation. बैंड बजना environment का. तो बोला इनिशियली जब डेवलपमेंट होती है तो एनवायरनमेंट का बैंड बजता ही है, लेकिन डेवलपमेंट एक लेवल से ज्यादा जब होने लग जाती है तो वी टेक सर्टेन स्टेप्स टू रिड्यूस दिस एनवायरमेंटल डिग्रेडेशन, एंड सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट इज एन एग्जांपल ऑफ द सेम. So George Bush was of the opinion कि नहीं भाई हमने तो डेवलपमेंट करनी है, why should we listen to whatever. And so hence in response to this particular thing, the UK based organization called Campaign Against Climate Change organized a protest, and it would be like the biggest demonstration addressing President George Bush's decision. अभी Donald Trump की भी बात करेंगे थोड़ी देर में. So this event would be first of the many rallies which are organized by this particular group. तो ये वाला group, Campaign Against Climate Change, जब भी उनको लगता है that the political masters are thinking more about development and less about environment, they always come to the forefront, right? Eventually, this would lead to the first National Climate March in 2005, an event where thousands of people came in, and this was, in conjunction with the United Nations, and they spoke about climate change. Now, the next thing is School Strike for Climate 2018 कि भाई जहाँ पे ग्लोबल एनवायरमेंटलिस्ट की बात हो रही है, वहां पे अगर ग्रेटा थनबर्ग की बात ना हो तो अधूरी छूट जाएगी. Now, what was this? As very rightly said, I mean, of course, you guys know about it, that there's this Swedish girl who basically said that I'm going to skip my lessons, I'm not going to go to school. This is not Greta Thunberg. This is what Greta Thunberg has done all over the world. So she has basically gone and said that, listen, I'm not going to school because I'm going to miss my classes in order to teach you guys a lesson on environment. And what do they call it? The School Strike for Climate Change. So inspired by that, inspired by the Parkland shooting, so Greta Thunberg, she realized that there is one way to get the attention of the government, and that is to, skip school and protest in front of the Swedish parliament is what she did. So within 3 months, she sparked a huge movement. And of course, she was speaking to world leaders in the United Nations Climate Summit. ये अलग बात है कि COP27 को उसने ग्रीन वॉशिंग बोल दिया और वो कहती मैंने नहीं जाना क्योंकि कोई कुछ करता नहीं है. So hence, because of which Fridays for Future, this organization was made, and Disha Ravi was a question that was asked in the sample paper. So you could possibly keep that in mind, right? Yeah. So Fridays for Future is the one, correct? How dare you speak? So that has now registered 98,000 corresponding events in 210 countries. So in 2019, what happened was she was like the youngest person to become the Time Magazine Person of the Year award she got, okay, because she was so influential. And also like she was nominated for a Nobel Prize, but obviously there is no such category for environment per se. So she got like an alternative Nobel Prize that is basically given to people who fight for climate change, and that is called the Right to Livelihood Award. All right. So this she received this particular award in 2019. Then is the People's Climate March. Now, People's Climate March, as you can see over here, while not as large as the march in 2014, 2017 में क्या हुआ कि 100 days of Donald Trump's administration had been completed, and around 2 lakh people showed up in the national capital, and there were 370 events that happened, and because of which the number was brought up to 3 lakh. And what did they talk about? They spoke about the fact that, Donald Trump administration is basically in power because he is getting a lot of paisa from certain organizations which are not doing which are creating environmental degradation. Simple as that. कि मतलब ये सरकार इसलिए बनी है क्योंकि ये सरकार किसी और को खुश कर रही है. वो किसको खुश कर रही है? There's a nexus between the industrialists and the government, right? So climate deniers and fossil fuel executives, तो इन लोगों को खत्म करने के लिए and environmental degradation के बारे में बात करने के लिए People's Climate March was done. It was done in 2014 also, then it was done in 2017 also. Then is the Global Climate Strike of 2019. Now, Global Climate Strike of 2019, this is basically called for fossil fuels to be phased out, to end the deforestation in Amazon and Indonesian rainforest, and transition in the renewable energy. बहुत सारे celebrities इसके अंदर आ गए. I'm not taking the name of Leonardo DiCaprio just because I think he's good looking, which I definitely think he is. But the point is that he is a huge advocate of climate change, all across the globe. And so hence, उसका नाम आ जाता है, मैं क्या करूं, right? So after Earth Day, the only other climate event featuring events over several day period was the global climate strike that took place in 2019. 8 दिनों में 7.6 million people basically joined forces, and then they were telling the global leaders that, we are not going to work, we are not going to school, we are not doing anything else. We are just going to stand here till the time you guys don't listen to us, because the fossil fuels need to be phased out, right? There has to be end of deforestation of various many rainforests, and we have to start using the renewable energy right now. Now, let's talk about certain personalities that have been in news. Now, this particular personality, this is Peter KALMUS. Now, Peter KALMUS has always been talking about extreme weather events through his work as a NASA climate scientist, and also on social media, which is all right. So he's talking about the hypocrisy of political leaders, and he's also denouncing oil companies. Abhi wo just stop oil wali ki baat baad mein karenge, ye alag insaan hai. So he has termed it as fossil fuel capitalism. कि मतलब पैसे कमाने के लिए आप नॉन रिन्यूएबल सोर्सेज ऑफ एनर्जी को इतना ज्यादा यूज कर रहे हैं, तो आपको पैसे तो मिल रहे हैं, लेकिन there is a very old saying that when all the rivers have dried up and all the trees have been cut, would you then realize that you can't eat money? So things like that is what this guy has been talking about. And so he made very drastic changes in his own family to lead by example, so that people realize that carbon emissions ko kam kiya ja sakta hai, right? He also wrote an award-winning book 2017 में called Being the Change, Live Well and Spark a Climate Revolution. Apart from that, he has been writing for The Guardian, Los Angeles Times, Climate Ad Project, and also promoting climate solutions and denouncing greenwashing. Now, greenwashing is very simple, कि आप दिखा रहे हैं कि यू आर एनवायरमेंटली फ्रेंडली, पर नाम का मतलब 2-3 आपके पास सोलर पैनल्स हैं, बाकी आप नॉन रिन्यूएबल सोर्सेज ऑफ एनर्जी को ही यूज कर रहे हैं टू प्रोड्यूस दैट काइंड ऑफ पावर, बट लोगों के सामने आप दिखाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि नो आई एम वेरी वेरी एनवायरमेंटली फ्रेंडली. सो दैट्स कॉल्ड ग्रीन वॉशिंग, राइट? So he is also involved with the Scientist Rebellion. So this organization of academicians who are basically indulging in non-violent protests, civil disobedience, जैसे महात्मा गांधी जी ने यहाँ पे करवाया, उसी तरीके से, just that their aim is climate change, right? Okay. Then is Jamie Margolin, climate justice activist. अब इनके साथ associate, she is the co-founder of this organization called Zero R. Right, Zero R is a youth climate action organization and movement, and again climate crisis के बारे में ये बात करते हैं. In 2018 इसने और 12 और youth ने they sued the state over the fires that they were doing, है ना, जो आग वगैरह वो लोग लगा रहे थे, तो they sued the state, they got the compensation, and they also got the compensation in the sense they did not win the legal battle, but at the end of it all, they made the Zero Hour organization, and now that is getting a lot of money, and she's just received an award, the Alternative Nobel Peace Prize Award in 2022. I'm just talking about those people who received those awards in 2022. ऐसे हर साल में काफी लोग हैं. Now, she garnered a lot of national as well as international attention, and so much so that she testified before the Congress, and she told basically their parliament, along with Greta Thunberg, that, how everyone has really spoiled the environment. She's also written a book called Youth to Power, Your Voice and How to Use It. She's also outspoken about being a member of the LGBTQ community. Then is George Washington Carver. Now, George Washington Carver, काफी पुराने इंसान के बारे में बात हो रही है, right? So he was a very prominent scientist of the 20th century, and he was a very accomplished painter. Apart from that, right, he is also known as a champion of crop rotation, कि मतलब किस समय पे कौन सा वाला क्रॉप उगाना चाहिए ताकि मैक्सिमम प्रोडक्टिविटी हो सके, फर्टिलिटी ऑफ द सॉइल कम ना हो जाए, राइट, हाउ टू ब्रिंग बैक द न्यूट्रिएंट्स टू द सॉइल ड्यूरिंग द कॉटन ऑफ सीजन, राइट, एंड लार्जली थैंक्स टू हिम peanuts became a 200 million per year crop by the end of 30s. So that was his particular achievement, right? Then is Aldo Leopold, also an ecologist. So he went to Yale University, and he was also in the US Forest Service. जैसे Indian Forest Service होता है, ऐसे US Forest Service था. So initially, as a member of the US Forest Service, he was asked to kill bears and other predators, right, because of the demand of the local people. क्योंकि जब animal और human conflict होने लग जाता है, तो obviously you're supposed to take care of the human beings as a forest officer. But he later on, applied a very holistic approach to wilderness management, ताकि वो animals को मारने की भी जरूरत ना पड़े और human-animal conflict है वो भी खत्म हो जाए. So इन्होंने भी एक किताब लिखी, A Sand Country Almanac. It remains one of the best book which is used for the preservation of wilderness. Now, if I give you an example from your own country. So now in the Northeast, what happens is, जब हम लोग railway tracks बनाते होते थे, so, these people used to have a lot of problems क्योंकि क्या होते थे, वहाँ पे elephants बहुत ज़्यादा है. So the elephants used to come and they used to destroy the railway tracks. So then, then they realized क्या करें, अभी elephants को मार तो सकते नहीं. So they came up with a very ingenious idea. Our Indian Forest Service officers, what did they do? They put like these loudspeakers जहाँ पे bees की humming की आवाज आ रही है. And जिस वजह से elephants would just not go there. You see, elephants do not go to a place जहाँ पे bees होते हैं. So they are not actually bees, but they are loudspeakers with that noise, because of which the elephants don't come till the railway track. So what are we doing? We are using a very innovative idea. We are not destroying anyone. We are reducing the human and animal conflict and also preserving the wilderness. So that is a very, very smart option. Okay, some things like that were also mentioned by this man in his book, right? So his famous quote was, "A thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise." Very simple quotation, but very difficult to adhere to. Then is Winona LaDuke. She is a Harvard-educated Ojibwe tribe member, Native America में. So she spoke about environmental justice, land rights. इन्होंने एक foundation भी बनाई है, Indigenous Women's Network and Honor the Earth, right, in which she played an integral role. So there is something called the Dakota Access Pipeline protest. I would like you to go and read about it a little, right? अगर नहीं समझ में आया तो आप कल पूछ लेना मेरे को क्लास में. So she was sort of like a facilitator of this Dakota Access Pipeline protests. She alone also founded the White Earth Land Recovery Project, which seeks to buy back indigenous land from non-natives. तो अगर मैं यहाँ पे original inhabitant नहीं हूँ, तो इन्होंने एक तरीका बनाया जिससे indigenous population को उनकी land वापस मिल जाए, so they can purchase it back, right? And also she is creating jobs for the indigenous population and cultivating wild rice and traditional Ojibwe food. So tribes kahin na kahin, not all of them, but kahin na kahin we also associate them with forest dwellers. So hence, they have a very symbiotic relationship, tribes mostly, with their environment. So that is something that you can keep in mind. Now, this particular lady, Julia Hill, she stayed on this ancient redwood tree for 2 years straight. Okay. And why did she do this? This is in Northern California. And she did this just so that the tree wouldn't be cut down. 2 साल तक वो इसी पेड़ पे बैठी और उन्होंने इवेंचुअली जब वेकेट किया तो थैंकफुली जो वो चाहती थी वो हो गया. So she vacated the 200-foot tall tree after striking a deal with the Pacific Lumber Company, right? And the tree was preserved, and there was a 200-foot buffer zone that was created. And in exchange, जितने लोगों ने उसको support किया, जितने लोगों ने funds वगैरह इकट्ठे किए, ये उठा के उसने उस कंपनी को दे दिए कि ये लोग अपने पैसे, अगर तुम्हें पैसे चाहिए, but ये trees तुम नहीं काटोगे, and they actually agreed to that. So this is Julia Hill. Fine. Now the next thing is Theodore Roosevelt, a politician and also a conservationist. Now, so like a big game hunter, he was known as. He was also the president of, he was first the governor of New York, and then he became the president also of the country. And you see, he was an animal lover. He set aside hundreds of millions of wilderness acres, actively pursued soil and water conservation, created more than 200 national forests, national monuments, national parks, bird sanctuaries, wildlife refuge. And he also loved keeping animals nearby and kept like a lot of animals at the White House when he was the president. So you could keep that in mind. Now, the next is Chico Mendes, another conservationist, right? Brazil में उनका क्या हो रहा था कि he wanted to save the rainforests of his place, right? And he comes from a family of rubber harvesters. And initially, when he realized that, इतना ज़्यादा deforestation हो रहा है Amazon का, so he started an entire movement and he got a lot of support from his international counterparts and काफी ज़्यादा activism किया. लेकिन ये activism की वजह से कुछ लोग जो कि वो टिम्बर को काट के अपना पैसा कमा रहे थे, they got very upset and he was murdered eventually, right? So this guy is from Brazil, and in his words, he was murdered at the age of 44. So in his words, he said, at first I thought I was fighting to save rubber trees, then I thought I was fighting to save the Amazon forest, and now I realize I'm fighting for humanity. Unfortunately, this man was murdered. Then is Wangari Maathai. And she was a political activist and an environmentalist. Can we get this PPT? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Okay? I'm just here. I'll just tell them we'll put it up. Abhi dhyan se sun lo. So Wangari Maathai was an environmental political activist from Kenya. Right? Again, matlab inhone kya shuru kiya? She started off something called the Green Belt movement. So that is what I'm saying. Zero Hour organization किसने शुरू की, School for Strike किसने शुरू किया, Fridays for Future के साथ कौन associated है, such kind of questions can be asked. Fine. So she founded the Green Belt movement, wherein, she had planted some 30 million trees, provided jobs, secured firewood for rural communities. Also elected to the parliament with 98% votes, right? Also received the Nobel Peace Prize because not only was she dealing with environmental concerns, but jobs bhi create kiya, firewood, matlab livelihood bhi generate kiya rural community ke liye. Women-led groups banai, so women empowerment is also a part of it. And she also fought for the politically oppressed and for the planet, right? So that is Wangari Maathai, and she was from Kenya. Now, Nalini Kobo, this environmentalist, is from the United States. You have to realize, the youngsters are really doing a lot for the environment these days. So what happened was she lived in an area, let's do it. So Nalini Kobo, she lived in an area in Los Angeles, wherein there was like an Allen company drilling site, okay, which was like 30 feet away from her house. अब वो ड्रिलिंग साइट से इतने टॉक्सिक फ्यूम्स आने लग गए that people in her area, they suffered from nosebleed, from headaches, heart palpitations and other pollution related health problems. She herself was diagnosed with cancer as a teenager. Okay, and this is very, very common around Los Angeles. In fact, we'll talk about the last slide that we are going to talk about. It was made into a movie. Something similar to this. Chalo jab aayega tabhi baat karenge. Ye pehle dekh lete hain. So such urban oil wells are common and are disproportionately located in Black and Latino neighborhoods, which is also another type of discrimination, that you're making these things and you're making it in such areas which are minorities. So she accused the Los Angeles of environmental racism. Okay. And later on, so this paved way for major changes for the city's oil extraction policies. And 24 of this company's executives, they are facing charges today for environmental health and safety, violating the protocols for environmental health and safety. And LA County Board of Supervisors, they unanimously voted in 2021 to ban new oil wells in unincorporated parts of the country and to examine the status of existing ones. कि नए हम बनाएंगे नहीं और पुराने वालों का. And look at us, teenagers sitting at home. No, guys, you're also working very, very hard for your exam. Don't think that you're any less than anyone else, just that their ambition is a little different than yours. Not everyone can be the same. Not everyone's life story is the same, but we are all struggling and we are all trying to be the best version of ourselves. And so we should be very, very proud of ourselves. Okay. Now, the next one is Marjan Minnesma. Now, what is this? She's from the Netherlands. And again, like Dutch government को जाके बोल रही है कि climate action बहुत seriously आपको लेना चाहिए. It's taken a lot of years, a lot of work, a lot of speeches to mobilize the public, to get the public together and to put this message across to the Dutch government that, climate change is our duty. जैसे आप पढ़ते हैं ना negligence में legal duty of care, breach of that duty causes a damage. So she's saying that you have a legal obligation, a duty of care to protect the climate, fine, and to protect the people as a consequence. So the ruling, which was finally upheld in 2019, forced the government to cut the emission by a quarter below 1990 levels by the end of 2020. Okay? And that is how she contributed to her own country. The next one is Alexandra Narvaez and Alex Lucent. Now, these are two members from the Kofan community in rural Ecuador. अब इसमें क्या है, both of them, they feel a very, like I said, जो original inhabitants होते हैं, they always have like a very, very close connection to their ancestral land, right? And their ancestral land basically comprises of 79,000 acres of primary rainforest. And frequently यहाँ पे illegal logging हो जाती है, mining हो जाती है, poaching हो जाती है. तो इक्वेडोर के गवर्नमेंट से इन लोगों ने जाके इसके बारे में बात की कि ये लार्ज स्केल माइनिंग की जो आप कंसेशंस दे जा रहे हो, दिस इज रियली बैड बिकॉज वी हैव अ डीप कनेक्शन टू आवर लैंड एंड इट विल डिस्ट्रॉय आवर लैंड, राइट? सो आफ्टर कलेक्टिंग इमेजेस एंड ड्रोन फुटेजेस एंड मैप, दे लॉन्च्ड अ लॉसूट दैट वाज सक्सेसफुल and setting a legal precedent that will protect the Kofan region from all future gold mining. So that is great, right? Again, so that is how they also gave their own contribution. Now, the next one is Nivat Roitke, also known as Kru Thi, like teacher in Thai. Very, very interesting. So now what is happening is he's a school teacher and he creates grassroots campaign powerful enough to stop the Chinese and the Thai government. So what are the Chinese and the Thai government trying to do? They're trying to use this Mekong River. And क्या करने चाहते हैं वो, यहाँ पे 500 टन कार्गो शिप्स वगैरह लेके जाना चाहते हैं. So because the river flows, 3,000 miles from the Tibetan mountain to the South China Sea, is second only to the Amazon in freshwater biological diversity, and its floodplains, they provide livelihood to 65 million people. So जैसे ही पता चला कि भाई यहाँ पे 500 टन कार्गो शिप्स वगैरह का काम शुरू होने वाला है, Kru Thi, a school teacher, he launched years-long campaign, relying on मतलब local community को साथ में जोड़ लिया, academicians को साथ में जोड़ लिया, media को बुला लिया, NGOs, citizen scientists, and he was successful in 2020 because the project was officially abandoned. He said, not only will this destroy the biodiversity, it will also have a bad impact on the livelihood of the people who are over here. So the Thai government, it is for the first time that it has cancelled a trans-boundary project because of its environmental destructiveness. So this is because of Kruthi, a school teacher. Then is Chima Williams, right? And is an environmental lawyer who has managed to do something that no one has done before. So what is happening is Royal Dutch Shell, UK-based company, oil spills बहुत ज़्यादा करती है in this Niger Delta. Niger Delta में बहुत ज़्यादा oil spills वगैरह होने लग गए. So he started off this legal action and said that the company is totally disregarding the environmental safety of this particular area. And Nigeria, a country whose exports are mainly comprised of crude oil, is the 13th largest oil producer in the world. So who's the first largest oil producer in the world? Crude oil. That is your homework. Now, while some people have profited enormously by this, many more have been made homeless. They have been devastated by such actions. And so hence, he has been victorious, and his victory holds Shell accountable in a very radically new way and offers a much better hope for the world at large कि कहीं जाके एक developed country अगर जाके ये वाला काम कर रही है तो हम law का रास्ता use करके उनको भी बंद कर सकते हैं. ठीक है. Then is Malaika Vaz. So there is illegal trade in manta rays. Manta rays are these cold water fish, okay? This is how they are in the shape of diamond, if you can make it out, right? So इनका illegal trade चल रहा है Southeast Asia में, tracking the pipeline from Indo-Burmese border to the wildlife market of China. So इन्होंने, because she's a television host and a science communicator, she showed all of this on TV, on Discovery Channel and on Animal Planet. Over the past couple of years, she's just been investigating. So this is in the investigation phase, but at least people are talking about it, which is a huge deal. Then is Extinction Rebellion. Okay, now this particular organization or this protest, so you can see that sign says new oil plus gas is equal to death. तो ये ना कुछ organizations जैसे ये वाली Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, Insulate Britain, इनके जो founders हैं वो similar हैं, पर पहले इसके बारे में बात करते हैं. So group क्या है? Again, non-violent civil disobedience movement कर रहे हैं. कहते हैं life on earth is in crisis और हमें इसको रोकने की जरूरत है. ठीक है. They use an hourglass. जैसे I'm so sorry for the, you can go and see it on Google to make it better. So imagine this is a circle, okay, and that's an hourglass. So that's basically their logo. They are trying to say that, listen, it's a matter of time that everything is going to collapse, people are going to die, and the environment is going to be really bad. And so hence they have started working towards it. They've started protesting a lot. Gail Bradbrook and Simon Bramwell and Roger Hallam. Roger Hallam तो हर जगह ही आपको नाम दिख जाएगा. Just Stop ये next वाले में भी दिख जाएगा. Now in the UK, Extinction Rebellion has three main demands. They say कि एक तो climate emergency impose कर दो, जैसे national emergency, state emergency, financial emergency है, कहते हैं ऐसे national ये climate emergency impose कर दो. दूसरा, reduce the carbon emission to net zero by 2025, which is rather soon. And that's what the government is saying कि भाई मतलब अगर आप बोल भी रहे हो तो थोड़ा सोचो, क्योंकि आपने तो बहुत जल्दी बोल दिया. But according to them, it can be done, and so hence they are saying it. Citizens Assembly must be formed to oversee the changes. Okay, so citizen participation should be there. In fact, sometimes we do this also because we feel, जैसे क्लास में, अब पता है जिस सेंटर की मैं बात कर रही हूँ, मैं 10 मिनट की ब्रेक देती हूँ ताकि एटलीस्ट 15 मिनट में तो वापस आए. So 2025 बोल रहे तो तभी तो जाके 2027 तक बात करेंगे, नहीं तो तब तक तो करेंगे भी नहीं, right? So that is what I'm trying to say. Then across the two period, in August and September of this year, these activists blocked the Oxford Circus, erected a giant table in the Covent Garden. मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा इन लोगों ने किया. They are blocking road, blocking buildings, right? 2019, 2020 में भी London, Manchester, Cardiff में इन्होंने बहुत protest किया है. Paris में भी किया है. Eiffel Tower ही चढ़ गए. Right, members in Germany, they blocked roads in Berlin. Like I said, that's what they do. They block roads and, you know, try to gain attention. Right. Then is Just Stop Oil. So यहाँ पे क्या किया था? Extinction Rebellion. दो और तो थे, लेकिन रॉबर्ट हैलम था. इंसुलेट ब्रिटेन करके भी है, वहां पे भी रॉबर्ट हैलम है. और जस्ट स्टॉप ऑयल में भी कहीं ना कहीं इनके ही फाउंडर्स में से कुछ कुछ लोग हैं. नाउ एक्सटिंक्शन रिबेलियन, इंसुलेट ब्रिटेन. Extinction Rebellion is all over the world, basically talking about climate change as a whole. Insulate Britain is just for Britain. And Just Stop Oil is just talking about the bad impacts of oil. ठीक है, एक subset हो गया उसका. So the movement came to attention following a series of protests in March, जहां पे प्रीमियम लीग फुटबॉल ग्राउंड में एक एक्टिविस्ट ने खुद को बांध दिया, ठीक है, जस्ट टू गेन अटेंशन. फिर उसके बाद यू नो दे आर ट्राइंग टू डिस्टर्ब द ऑयल टर्मिनल्स एंड सम ऑफ द कंट्रीज बिजिएस्ट मोटरवेज. फाइन, यूके में भी इन लोगों ने किया है कि हॉल्ट द न्यू लाइसेंसेस फॉर एक्सप्लोरेशन ऑफ ऑयल. नाम से पता चल रहा है दे आर सेइंग जस्ट स्टॉप ऑयल. Right, unlike Extinction Rebellion, jinka campaign is on a single big issue, which is climate change, Just Stop Oil is more specific focus. So they're saying end the fossil fuels and also start with renewable sources of energy in order to avoid energy waste. And यही वाले थे जिन्होंने सूप भी फेंका था in on Van Gogh's sunflowers, जो कि आपके passage में ही था उसका आंसर, वो अलग बात है, right? And the second one, they also, you know, closed down a major road, M25, with a series of demonstration. I mean, closing down a road or blocking a road is not legal, but it does help in, you know, getting a lot of attention, which is why tomorrow we are going to talk about every protest related to farmers and the important ones only, because there've been so many, right? And Just Stop Oil basically says most of the funding comes from the Climate Emergency Fund, which is a US network set up in 2019 to fund climate activism. And ye wale fund ko in part, it has been funded by Aileen Getty, who is a US philanthropist, jiske grandfather petroleum tycoon the J. Paul Getty. So I think grandfather के गलती से grandson सीख गया और उसने पैसा दिया, तो फिर ये वाली organizations बननी शुरू हो गई. ठीक है. So this is Just Stop Oil. And the last one, so this is what I was talking about. मुझे नहीं पता तुम लोगों ने ये वाली मूवी देखी है कि नहीं देखी है. जूलिया रॉबर्ट्स पे है, मूवी मत देखने लग जाना. But this is a story and it's such an amazing story. Like, I made the entire PPT and it just came to my mind, so I had to like tell you about it. Erin Brockovich was not even a lawyer, right? She was a legal clerk, a consumer advocate. She realized that there is this company called Pacific Gas and Electric Company, जो ग्राउंड वाटर कंटामिनेशन कर रही है, और वो जिस लोकेलिटी में ग्राउंड वाटर कंटामिनेशन कर रही थी, हर एक को कैंसर हो रहा था, और चुप चुप थे ये लोग कॉम्पनसेशन भी दे रहे थे. And so then she sort of, you know, took the help of an attorney, Ed Masry, and in 1993 she filed a suit against them and she was successful also. In fact, she's still doing a lot of popular movements against these big multinational companies who are actually doing the same thing, जो अभी हम लोगों ने दूसरे वाले केस में भी देखा था. Is that okay, everyone? So ये वाली चीज I do understand है ना, कितने सारे नाम और कितने सारे प्रोटेस्ट, आप आराम से उसको लर्न करना. मुझे सिर्फ 2-3 क्वेश्चंस का आंसर दे दो और फिर हम लोग खत्म करते हैं. अमृता देवी कौन से वाले केस के साथ रिलेटेड थी, कौन से वाले प्रोटेस्ट के साथ रिलेटेड थी? आई एम जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट व्हाट वी डिड डे बिफोर यस्टरडे. अमृता देवी कौन से वाले प्रोटेस्ट के साथ रिलेटेड थी? Good, Himansh and Mansi. So this is your Bishnoi movement, ठीक है. एक उत्तराखंड में हुआ, एक साउथ में हुआ. दोनों में we were hugging the trees. And so what are these two movements called? Quickly. उत्तराखंड वाला एंड ऑल्सो साउथ वाला भी था. साउथ में कर्नाटका में हमने ये किया था. What are these two movements called? Good, Mansi. What about the rest of us? Correct. So उत्तराखंड वाला हमने बता दिया एंड कर्नाटका वाला भी बता दो. ठीक है. So चिपको and apico movement. Very nice. Very well done. Sundarlal Bahuguna is related to two types of, I mean, many protests, but two very famous protests. Please tell me the names. Sundarlal Bahuguna. चलो एक तो हो गया आपका चिपको मूवमेंट, दैट इज फाइन. व्हाट इज द सेकंड वन? Sundarlal Bahuguna was also related, apart from Chipko movement, to another movement. What was the name of that movement? Very good, Sindhuja and Mansi and Komalpreet. So this is the Tehri Dam conflict. अच्छा, एक ऐसा कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, एक ऐसा आंदोलन जहां पे साल फॉरेस्ट, नेचुरल साल फॉरेस्ट को हटा के टीक वुड बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे, तो ट्राइब्स ने बोला नहीं करने देंगे. क्या नाम है इस आंदोलन का? करेक्ट, मानसी. वेल डन. जंगल बचाओ आंदोलन. अच्छा, एक लेडी है कॉल्ड वंदना शिवा, उसकी एक फाउंडेशन है, एक मूवमेंट है. क्या नाम है उस फाउंडेशन का या मूवमेंट का? गुड, सिंघम बिहार, दैट्स राइट. There's a lady who is taking care of this Navdanya movement or Navdanya Foundation. What is the name? ओए सॉरी, लेडी का नाम बोल दिया बाद में. कैंसल आउट दिस क्वेश्चन. हाँ चलो. राजस्थान के 850 विलेजेस को पानी पहुंचाया एक इंसान ने, तरुण भारत संघ बनाया. व्हाट्स हिज नेम? Well done. Rajinder Singh, saw it from the notes. Thank you for the honesty. ठीक है. And now the last question. तुम्हारा फेवरेट कोका कोला के पीछे कौन पड़ी है? Who's also the director of Center for Science and Environment. कोका कोला और पेप्सिको के पीछे कौन पड़ी है? Who is that lady who wants to take all of this away from you? Well done. ठीक है. Very good, very good. Everyone's correct. Well done. ठीक है. नोबेल प्राइज मिला है इस इंसान को, और द एनर्जी एंड रिसोर्सेज, आई बेग हर नॉट टू, और एनर्जी एंड रिसोर्सेज इंस्टीट्यूट को चेयरमैन का चेयरमैन रहा है ये इंसान. व्हाट्स हिज नेम? लास्ट क्वेश्चन फॉर द डे. So this man has received the Nobel Prize, all right, and he was the chairman of the Energy and Research Institute. 2007 में Nobel Prize मिला है. What is his name? Pancholi. That's how you've learnt it, but it's Panchori. ठीक है? You learn it as Aditya Pancholi, whatever you want to learn it as, but it's R.K. Panchori. हाँ, correct. ठीक है. So I expect you guys to learn all of this up by tomorrow. Tomorrow, let's do everything and anything related to agriculture. Okay, we will try to do it in one, but I'm sure it will not happen in one go. Then we'll, divide it in two parts. Is that okay, everyone? इसका फायदा तभी रहेगा जब आप इसको लर्न करेंगे, एंड तो अगर इसका मैक्सिमम फायदा उठाना है तो उसको पढ़ना शुरू कर दो. ठीक है, लर्न करना शुरू कर दो. फार्म लॉज, हाँ जी, कल फार्म लॉज, वही मैं बोल रही हूँ. एनीथिंग एंड एवरीथिंग रिलेटेड टू एग्रीकल्चर इज व्हाई आई एम सेइंग दैट इट विल नॉट हैपन इन one class, but we will do it in 2 classes, and we'll talk about the protests and the important leaders and the important institutions as well as the important initiatives. All right. Yes, sure. So Janvi, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to sir, and then by tonight, I don't know because everybody has left, maybe by tonight, but by tomorrow for sure you will get it. Okay. Done. Thank you very much. Good night. Enjoy whatever is left of Wednesday, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Good night.